Welcome back to Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS. Clarity, understanding, and empathy. Common values for those on the front lines charting a bold way forward for African Americans in St. Louis. Stay tuned as we talk to these changemakers, visionaries, and overcomers. I'll ask the questions you want to hear and get the clarity we all need about the issues we face. That's next on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS.
In today's episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel, we speak with novelist David Haynes, who created a literature organization called Kimbilio. It's to bring writers together within the African diaspora for community, support, and to make a change through their craft right here in St. Louis. We discuss changing the face of American literature and providing community and support to writers within the Black community. That's next on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS.
Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center, Orvin and Latrice Kimbrough, the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation, and the St. Louis Development Corporation.
Welcome back to another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. As we wind down season 2, just want to say thank you for spending 2 seasons with us already. I say that with a little bit of shock that we've made it this far. So happy that so many of you have joined in this journey in our lives here at 9 PBS. And I thank you to 9 PBS as well for embracing this podcast. It's historic, the first podcast they've ever had. And so we want to say thank you. And then I want to give you a job. You have a job to do, my friends. You need to subscribe to this podcast. So easy to do. Just click the subscriber button and voila, there you are. And then like the podcast as well, because you actually do like it. And so just click that like button. And I have so many subscribers and listeners and viewers who share the podcast on a regular basis around the world. We've gotten comments from London, from New York, from the UK. I mean, we have people listening from all over the world, in part because I have family all over the world. So that is always a good thing. So thank you for sharing, though. And we love the comments. Keep them coming. Every now and then, I also get suggestions about people I should have on the show. And sometimes they come from public relations types, which I enjoy as well. They have a keen eye for their clients. So this interview today is the result of someone just reaching out and saying, I think you'd be interested in having this man on your podcast. And I said, absolutely. When I was growing up, there were 2 things I had in my room. One was a little transistor radio because I loved listening to the radio. And the other was a stack of books because I was reading everything I could get my hands on. And when I say the Hardy Boys, some of you of a certain age know exactly what I am talking about. Nancy Drew, you know exactly what I am talking about. I've been reading from a very early age and have always loved it. So today's conversation is so special to me, and I believe to the region as well. So let me just say welcome home, David Haynes.
Thank you so much for having me, Carol. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to have you. And when I say welcome home, it's because you have moved back home and brought with you this world-renowned literary organization, which is called
Kimbilio.
Which is Swahili for safe haven.
Correct.
And what is this literary organization? Not a publishing house, but a literary organization.
Kimbilio is a community of writers who are interested in preserving and also nurturing and supporting writers from the African diaspora. Essentially, our community is Black writers from all over the world. We have currently 220 fellows, I believe, and they are among the best emerging Black writers in the country, in the world. And our goal at the basis of our goal is simply to change the face of American literature. And our folks are doing that by publishing well, terrific books and winning prizes for them, and also getting those books out to lots of readers.
And we'll get into why the publishing world needs changing, but this organization's over a decade old.
Correct.
And my understanding is you always intended to bring it back to St. Louis. Why is that?
Well, I guess it would be fairer to say I always intended to bring myself back to St. Louis. and the organization came with me. And one of the things about St. Louis, of course, is that we're in the heart of the country, and we have a terrific literary community here, and terrific universities, world-class bookstores, including our partner Left Bank Books, and so this is a great place for us to be. And our goal with the organization is we really want to make sure that as our writers and other terrific Black writers of literary fiction are touring the country, that this is a stop that's always on the list.
The other question, because we now know Kimbilio means safe haven, why do writers from the African diaspora need a safe haven?
Well, one of the things that our fellows tell us on a fairly regular basis is that while they may have gotten really excellent craft training and support from their peers in other institutions, when they come to Kimbilio and they sit down around the table with their other Kimbilio fellows, for many of them, it's the first time they feel like the conversation that they're having about their stories is really useful, where people really are understanding what they're trying to do. They get the context, they understand the community, and they aren't having to explain things to people that to other writers that, in fact, they shouldn't have to explain. And I think the other thing about that is that we're really, really focused on building a community so that our fellows feel like, and they can attest to this, when they leave our events or after they become a fellow, they have a community that will be there to support them throughout the rest of their career. And that is priceless.
We're talking about a nurturing that takes place when you're talking to people who know your life, know your journey,
Correct.
know your story, if you will.
That's invaluable. And it's also the case that if you're in a room or if you're having conversations with writers or editors who don't do that, then you're constantly on the defensive about what it is that you're trying to create and the story that you're trying to tell. You're constantly having to explain your fiction as if it were a piece of anthropology, as opposed to simply a good story. So for a lot of our writers, as I said, when you get into the room with peers who understand the references and get what you're trying to do, you suddenly feel like, yeah, I'm a writer now. I'm with people that really get
it. Yeah. I'm reminded of what we hear in not only in a lot of different industries, whether it is food industry, the movie industry, even when we talk about Black history, that there's a feeling amongst some that that's a Black story, that's a Black movie, that's Black food, and so therefore only African Americans would be interested in it. And that's not true at all. And at the same time, there are stories of the Black experience that have yet to be told and are not being told because of the things you've just described.
I think that's such an important point. And I want to sort of flip it on its head and say one of the challenges that writers have, the writers in our community have, is that they're telling so many different kinds of stories. And sometimes when they put them in front of editors who are outside the community, they don't get they are not well accepted because people will literally say to them, we thought this was going to be a book about, this kind of dysfunction or this kind of.
Well, they assume the Black experience
but they assume
is
the Black
100%.
experiences. And, I think the most stunning thing about having, been connected to, all of these writers over these past 10 years is it's amazing how many different and surprising kind of stories that I am just like, wow, why hasn't anybody ever written that before? Well, now they have a place and an opportunity to get those stories built and told.
As I listen to you, it makes me think of the horror genre,
right?
Which is seemingly a relatively new thing written by people who happen to be Black, and now understanding that, okay, Black people like horror too, as if that is, and it is, I guess, a new revelation for some.
I think that's a great example. But we're also writing YA books, and we're writing
Young adult,
young adult books. And one of our fellows, Ariel Vincent, just published a book about it's a book in poetry about kids who are finding young love at the skating rink. And of course, we love the skating rink.
We
right?
love the skating
Why
rink.
hasn't anybody written that book before? Well, Ariel's written that book, and some of our fellows are delving deep into the horror and the speculative genre. Just as another local person that I'll bring up, one of our fellows, Lindsay Ellis, has written an extraordinary book that she really is writing about the civil rights movement here in St. Louis in the 1960s, and thinking about particularly the disruption of the Veiled Prophet. And I thought, well, that's a story that hasn't been told to the world, and so we're really getting out a lot of tales from all over the country, all over the world that deserve to be heard.
Explain more about the fellowship program and what the goals are, and when you saw, I'm asking this multi-layered question here. What are the goals of the fellowship? What did you see early on, over a decade ago, that said to you, I need a fellowship program, I need a retreat for writers?
The first part of that question I'll answer by saying that we built what we're doing right now on a peer organization called Cave Canem, which is at this point about 25 years old. And Cave Canem has, they're probably older than that, and I'm going to get in trouble because I know some of my poet friends out there are going to say, you should know the answer to this, David. But they had already a strong tradition of influencing the poetry world and changing the face of the poetry world by doing the same kind of thing that we're trying to do in our community. Nothing like it existed for Black fiction writers. And so a lot of us who are fiction writers, like myself, said we need something like this in our own community. And what was missing, I think, for a lot of us was simply the opportunity to have a community. And among the things having a community means is having peers who, if you're out on a book tour and you go to a city, they're going to show up and be part of your audience. Or they're going to read your book and say, hey, I've got some advice about taking this forward, or let me connect you with my editor, or let me connect you to my agent, or hey, I'm editing a journal next month, and why don't you send me a story? So all those kinds of professional connections and community support were much needed, and I'm really pleased to say that they're underway. Because we've gotten Kimbilio up on its feet and moving forward.
It's not hard to believe that no matter the arena in life, whether you are a mother or a father, whether you are a welder, in my case, a journalist, I'm in a community of journalists, I'm in a community of moms, of sons. There are all kinds of communities, and being in community can make all the difference in the world, in a sense of belonging and a sense of place. And when you are struggling, it is that community that shows up for you. So I'm so happy that you have been doing this for so long. I was curious when I read that the organization is, and I'm so afraid to say it because I don't want to say it wrong, Kimbilio.
Kimbilio is correct.
I said it. I practiced last night. That your focus is on the African diaspora and not just African Americans in the United States. Why that focus? And then are the challenges that Afro Latinos or Afro-Brazilians face, are they different than African Americans?
One of the things that we found by making the community as international as possible is that the struggles are the same across the world. Now, most of our fellows are, from the United States, but we do have folks who are, Afro-Brits or, are Cameroonian or Nigerian. But I think that I want to sort of broaden the idea of how folks talk about themselves. So our fellows identify, for example, as mixed race. They identify as Afro-Latino. They identify as Afro-Caribbean. Some of them identify very specifically with a specific island, for example. They're Jamaican American. And
my husband is from St. Lucia.
And
people say, is he from Jamaica? And he's like, do we not understand geography? And the answer to that is no, we do not understand geography. But go on, David.
What the folks that gather at the annual retreat, or that become fellows and connect across generations, understand is that they're sharing some common roots and some common experiences that they can serve as references as they are trying to hone their crafts. And I want to say, ultimately, that's the goal, is creating great books, right? And so that's the common denominator that we all share. And then I have to say that it's amazing to me to see, to have experienced the stories of folks from all these different kinds of backgrounds. Can I say one other thing about this really quickly? That we also have folks that are representing full spectrum of ages and lifestyles and careers. We have folks that have come out of professional training to be a writer, MFA programs. Some of our folks are have never taken a writing course, but they're read a lot and they understand how fiction works. So they come in ready to go. We have doctors, we have lawyers, we have parents whose full-time career is raising their families. So
by the time people watch this, we will be a very short time from the opening of submissions, applications for the fellowship program, right?
That's correct.
And before you speak to that, when I saw, I was all over your website, when I saw the application process and read a little bit about that, I immediately thought this is, either already published or writers. I did not think that people might be able to become a fellow, go to the retreat, and they are a doctor who just wants to be a great writer.
Well,
what are the requirements too? Speak to that.
So let me speak to the requirements. First of all, the requirements are primarily that you submit a really good, strong piece of fiction and a short essay about why you want to be a member of the community. And so I think part of what you're hearing me say, and I think an important part of what you're hearing me say, is that you don't, there are lots of ways that people can learn to write a good, strong piece of fiction, including just reading well and reading widely, and maybe taking classes in their community. And so we don't have those kinds of barriers to becoming a part of the community. I do think it's important for people to understand that the folks who become fellows are well on their way to emerging as successful writers. So we do not really at this point in the organization, we're not really working with beginning writers or folks who are sort of trying to find their way. The folks who come to us are already, quite well along in their journey, but they get on that path in a lot of different ways.
And you can tell that from the submission piece.
Yes, and we have a team of judges who are themselves very well published writers that names folks would recognize, and they read the submissions and select each class of fellows. So, but they don't. They do that anonymously. There are not any names on submissions, and
it's blind audition, if you will.
Blind audition, and there's no There's no identifying information, so they don't know whether somebody's already published a book or two, or if this is somebody's sort of first foray out into the professional world. And that's kind of exciting too.
What does success or basically productivity look like for Kimbilio?
For our fellows, I think it's for many of them, it is just getting that first book done and out into the world.
Okay.
And a lot of folks come to us sort of right at that stage. And we have a second program, which I'll talk about really quickly, which is we've developed a mentorship series, and that's where we pair fellows with faculty members, and particularly looking at those fellows who are sort of 90% there, and they're just getting ready to get that book across the finish line. They just maybe need a little nudge to get it across the finish line, and that's kind of our focus. We're really looking at folks who are really getting ready to sort of, take those first steps into publishing, into the publishing world. So that for a lot of our fellows, for some of them, it's getting that first story in a really good publication, the first short story. For other folks, it is attracting an agent. One of our fellows from last summer reached out to me this week and said, "Hey, an agent found me on the Kimbilio website, and
Oh, wow.
and it would like to talk to me about the book I'm working on." And so we just had a short conversation about that. So all of those kinds of ways that people are just emerging into the room. I should also say that for those of us in the community who are already publishing or already well published in teaching, it's also important to have this kind of community, this kind of connections with both these emerging writers and also with our published peers.
So success also looks like building the community.
Building the community and having the community as a touchstone, regardless of where you are in your professional journey.
You have written 8?
8 books
10,
for adults.
13, how many?
Some one of those numbers. Let's go with all of them. 8 books for adult readers, and then I've written 5 books for younger readers.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long has we're going to talk about Martha's Daughter in just a second, but how long does and is that hard to say? That's hard to answer. Every book is different.
Oh yeah, every book is different, and every book sort of represents a different sort of phase in your life where you were.
Because you're different every time you're writing.
Every time you're writing it, and I've also had a number of different kinds of careers, from teaching middle school to teaching college to doing educational policy work for a couple of years. And so, lots of different steps along the way.
You've been a couple of different men. Versions of yourself.
Versions of myself in different cities. So books come out of those different experiences.
I want to read a bit from Martha's Daughter, and I'm not going to let you go before we talk about Lauren Morrow and the Left Bank Books series. But this Martha's Daughter is a novella and stories. What does that mean to me?
So there's about half the book is the title novella, Martha's Daughter. It's about 120 pages, I guess, and it's novellas are sort of in that space between a long short story and a short novel. So we've got that one novella in there, and then it's augmented by 10 other stories, and some of them are directly connected thematically, and all of them I think are connected in some way in terms of either settings or themes. Or
how long did this take you? It's not small.
It's
not short.
The collection itself, those stories were written over many years. And so one of the things about the stories in the book is that they also have connections to some of the novels I've written over the years, because often I would work on a novel and then maybe take a break and write a story. And so as I was looking at the manuscript for Martha's Daughter, I would say, I remember when I wrote this story. That's when I was working on that novel. So,
and what is the more difficult thing, character development or storyline development?
Well, I think that varies. Every writer's going to answer that a little bit differently.
Yeah.
My work is entirely character-driven. So I start with a character and put them on a path and see where they take me. So if I don't have a character, I don't have a story.
I have heard that so many times from so many writers, so many authors, see where it takes me, which does that literally mean you don't even know how the story's going to end? Or have you written stories where I know the end, but I don't know, you're writing backwards, for instance?
Each one is a little differently. But for me, sometimes I'll get a character's voice, and that's what happened with the title character, Martha's daughter, whose name is Cynthia. Cynthia started talking, and I was so interested in what she was saying that eventually she found her way to both a dilemma that or a problem that a story needed to solve, and from there the arc of the story unfolded. But when she first started talking, I didn't know what that was, so I did find it by simply engaging with her voice, which was so fascinating to me.
And are you engaging with her voice over cereal or lasagna at home? Are you on a long drive through Connecticut and you're engaging with her voice?
I'm the king of the long drives, so a lot of times characters will talk to me when I'm driving, but they talk to you when you're cooking. They come to you all the time. Once you're in there and you find them, then they start following you around and nagging you. But at a certain point, you got to sit down at the keyboard and start to make and really commit them to the page and let them start really talking.
I think I read an interview where a variety of them with you, and you talked about the literary scene in St. Louis, and because St. Louis has an image, a self-image problem, St. Louisans are very self-deprecating. They may not think that we are very literate, therefore we don't have a literary scene, but we do. And of course, when I say Maya Angelou, that people, okay, there's one Carol. That's rather unfair to bring her up. But I bring her up because I've had the great honor of interviewing her twice. And I ask every writer the same question, and I did ask her about the writing process. Some people told me that they set the clock every day at 8 a.m. or every night at 11 p.m., and they write for an hour. Maya Angelou, she talked about the ending of the process, where she takes I'm speaking as she's alive still, where she would take a glass of sherry in a beautiful glass, she told me, and have a sip of sherry when she's finished with the work. What is your writing process?
Oh, well, it varies. I think the main thing first thing I would say to folks is I have never written a word before noon in my life. So I'm an afternoon and evening writer.
Oh.
And so when I'm really working, I will sometimes work a couple hours in the afternoon, and then after supper and relaxing in the evening a little bit, I'll sometimes go back to the computer late in the evening. Because I'm not a morning person. So,
me neither.
So it's never going to be in the morning. As I finish, I guess I'm one of these people who I never know when I'm done until I've really kind of pushed through the revision of it several times. And then at that point, I'm kind of exhausted with it. and so
I'm done with you.
If there's any toasting, there's maybe just kind of put that away. I don't even want to see any of this anymore.
Then
I don't
want
to know what happens with these characters with this book. I'm moving on to something else now.
Hollywood has spoiled so many things about our understanding of a variety of things. Like crimes are not solved in 24 minutes, right?
Yeah.
They don't get the DNA in 10 minutes. And I think it maybe has changed our understanding or awareness about how the writing process and character development. There's so much comedy out there and a lot of drama too about writers. But I often have seen not dry erase board or yellow sticky notes where people are plotting. Here's the character, and they're making the connections between the people and the arc of the story. Are you on a board somewhere? Do you do that as well, or no? Are you on a yellow legal pad? I will say I love to tell this story. Jack Buck, the late Jack Buck, of course, people know he started writing poetry late in life. and he did it all, scratching it out on a yellow legal pad, longhand. He never used a typewriter.
I started on yellow legal pads. This was sort of on the pre-computer days, and I loved writing longhand.
Yeah.
Of course, I have terrible handwriting, so then I would
We have another thing in common. High five on that. Not morning people and terrible handwriting.
I'd have to translate it because I can't read it. So that would like be an entire second draft. I think it says something like this.
What did I mean to say?
And I have used some kinds of, I'll call them schematics or organizations, meaning that I will kind of, I remember with one of my books, a book called Somebody Else's Mama, where there were 3 different characters, and I sort of had these 3 threads going. And I used 3x5 cards, and I had a big empty wall like the one we're looking at over here, and I just kind of laid the story out across the wall. And each character had a different color. And so, but I remember I wasn't thinking about it so much in terms of, how the plot flowed forward. But when it was all sort of laid out and I was trying to solve it, I said, I think I need more yellow over in this part,
okay.
or maybe more pink over in this part.
Okay,
So, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I know that I have listened to some books on tape and had the distinct feeling like that's out of character for the character.
Yeah.
And made me wonder, now that you're saying this, it makes me wonder, did they had too much yellow and not enough?
Yeah.
Because the character and could have intended it that way, but in thinking back on some of those different stories where I felt, well, that's odd for that person to do that or say that. So,
one of the things that I'll say about that really quickly is that this is why, I love to write novels. This is my first collection of stories, Martha's Daughter. But all the other books that I've written are either novels for adults or short novels for kids. And one of the great things about writing novels is the challenge of the fact it's really hard to keep it all in your head.
Well, that's why the yellow cards and the red cards and the dry erase board, right?
And so whenever I see in a book that I'm reading myself, I'll think, well, I wonder if they lost track of this thread. They just might have, because it's a lot to keep track of in your head.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
So in Martha's Daughter, I don't know if The Weight of Things is a separate short story. I don't think it's the novella's first.
The novella's first, and then The Weight of Things is one of the stories in the book that contains the same character. Martha is in that story. So,
okay, Martha's in this story as well. But man, you get right into Lou Wilson wakes up and she's to the man she's been married to for 4 decades, and he does not respond, and she calls 911. But you have such great lines.
Thank you.
A great line, The Weight of Things in Martha's Daughter. Wilson had lived a long and only occasionally troubled life. I love that line.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I first of all, I love her character, Lou Wilson, but their husband is such a great character too, because he's not really there. He's already gone when the story's open.
Yeah.
But his presence is so important as she's mourning him, and with Martha's help, she's mourning him.
Another great line, and I bring this up because this is a part of your series with Left Bank Books. Lauren Morrow, her book Little Movements, a novel by Lauren Morrow, and she's from Hazelwood.
Yes.
A line I love in her book is Layla Smart was raised by her pragmatic Midwestern mother to dream medium. Not dream big, but to dream medium. And I'm such a visual, and you should be a visual reader. When I read that, I could feel, and I could even hear some of the conversations. Now, honey, now you can't do that, or we don't go there. We don't do that. Dream medium. What do you like about Lauren Morrow's writing?
Oh, her work is fabulous, and she's a trained dancer, professional dancer.
Oh my, she looks like it.
And she does. She does. Now she's working in the PR world in the publishing industry, but she's a trained professional dancer. Took classes here in St. Louis at Coca, so coming and when she's in town, she's actually going to do a reading for for Kimbilio and also reading for them. And so what I find when writers are coming out of the other arts, be it musicians or be it, dancing, acting, they're bringing some of that into the writing as well. And so you see that flow and that fluidity coming in her writing. And, one of our other fellows is a writer named Rosalind Story, who was a colleague of mine in Texas. And Roz is a violinist for the Fort Worth Symphony. And so in her work, you hear all the lyricism of her violin playing in the prose. So
I wonder, David, should our conversation be as much about it is about the lack of diversity in the publishing industry as it is about the need to mentor and support fiction writers?
Yeah, I think that I think people would be shocked at the actual statistics in terms of first of all the numbers of publishing professionals, that is the people in the industry who are supporting the work. The numbers of agents and editors are minuscule. But the real shocking number, and I believe the latest statistics we have about this are from earlier in this decade, in terms of the number of folks, according to tax records, who actually declare themselves as being writers. And I think the number of African American writers is in the low single digits in terms of people that actually make money doing it.
Are published,
Are published and making any money doing it. So it's certainly Kimbilio is a part, wants to be part of the solution to change that. And of course, it's I think it's also important to say in this context that we also feel so strongly about the fact that there are so many excellent writers who just need an opportunity to get that work out there. So our goal really is to give them the professional training and to build the professional networks for them that this excellent work can find an audience.
I tell you what, I think that we just don't, we have an attitude about fiction. We have a perception about fiction itself, about the stories. These aren't real. They aren't true. And maybe they're fun. And maybe they're sexy. And maybe they're, dramatic. They're mystery. We put them all in genres. But fiction as a way to explore ideas through our imagination is a relevant part of what fiction should do. But we don't really reflect on that, I don't think.
I think what at its best, I think what fiction does is it actually tells a kind of truth about being human that that isn't captured in other ways. In other words, you can put a camera in someone's house and just show them walking around 24 hours a day, and what you would see would be folks doing sort of ordinary, banal things, but you wouldn't hear what's going on in their heads and how they're thinking about moving through the world and thinking about their past and their experiences, or what it's like to be alive. And that those imaginative processes that all of us do on a daily basis is what fiction captures best. And I want to say, I think it does it better than any other medium. It does it better than film. It does it better than television. It does it better than history or anthropology. So, and that's why it's important to the society, and that's why it's important to support it.
Well, I don't want to just welcome you home, but I want to welcome you to the neighborhood because 9 PBS is here in the Grand Center Arts District, and that is where Kimbilio is located as well, correct?
That's correct. We are in the High-Low building, which is part of the Kranzberg Arts Center. We have a little desk up there where every now and then I show up, and we have had events there, and we also have our events over at our partner Left Bank Books. And so we're around, and our goal is we're going to, if there is great fiction out there that's being produced by writers of the diaspora, we're going to bring them to town so that everybody in the area can be exposed to those writers.
David, before we let you go, I've been asking our guests all season long a similar question, and it has to do with the title of the show, Listen St. Louis. And the question is, you're on the spot here, my friend, but you can do it. Who should we be listening to?
Oh, that's a tough one. let me say that other than Carol Daniel, of course, I think that who I think St. Louis should be listening to are its youth. And, there are a lot of young people in this community who are working really hard to find ways of getting heard about the nature of their lives. I think that folks would be maybe surprised to learn that in every high school in this region, there are groups of young people getting together to talk on a regular basis about how to solve the kinds of things that they're dealing with, whether that's gun violence, whether that's building a diverse community and being part of a diverse community. And these kids are talking about these things, and they're doing it in youth poetry slams. They're doing it in other networks that they're sort of developing on their own. Listen to them and pay attention to them.
That is very insightful, and certainly a person who's an educator would know this. We are so glad to have you back in St. Louis.
Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel, David.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel. And all you have to do is become a subscriber. It's very easy. Make sure you share the podcast and like it as well. And if you've got an idea or someone or an issue you would like us to discuss on Listen St. Louis, all you have to do is leave us a comment, and you can email me as well. Thank you again. Have a wonderful holiday season, and please rest assured we're working on season 3. The kickoff will happen in January. My heart is just fluttering that I get to say season 3 of this podcast. We have made it this far, and we only did it because of you. So we thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. Have a wonderful holiday season. We will see you for season 3 of Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel on 9 PBS.
Listen St. Louis with Carol Daniel is supported in part by Midwest Bank Center, Orvin and Latrice Kimbrough, the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation, and the St. Louis Development Corporation.